Good evening. The time is now 7:02. I'd like to call this meeting of the Beloit City Council to order. Mr. Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
I show 6 counselors present. Counselor Levy is absent.
Thank you. The next item is Pledge of Allegiance. May we all stand at this time.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is special orders of the day. There are none. Item 4 is public hearings. Item 4A, consideration of resolution 2021-130, approving Beloit transit route changes.
I believe we have James Thompson, the transit supervisor, here to present our changes tonight. Nope, it's on.
It's on?
Yep.
Okay. So about a year ago, we went through a major change on the routes, and we now, after that year, have taken a look at the routes and decided that there's some modifications that needed to be made. So I'd like to go through them if that's okay. Can you pull up the map? Okay. So routes 1 and route 6 serve the west side of town. We had an issue with those 2 buses meeting at Woodman's, which is a transfer point for them. So we shaved some of the time off of route 1, which is the red, it's displayed in red. And we have route 6 now going past McNeil School to help the middle school students that attend the school there. And that helps those 2 buses meet at Woodman's on time, so there's a smooth transfer of passengers. Route 1 will continue. Copeland Avenue and Porter Avenue, which was taken away by one of the other routes. So Route 6 is going to take care of that for us. So they'll meet up at Piggly Wiggly, and Route 6 will serve Copeland and then go back to the west side of town for passengers or customers that are on the east side of town that need to get to the west side of town, which we didn't have before. So that's a added thing. We also have Route 6 going by the high school. So now we have 2 buses serving the high school. So they'll get about half an hour service there. Route 2, which is an east side bus, is a half an hour route. It had some timing issues. It would meet with the other buses, the other 3 buses up at Piggly Wiggly, but it was getting there late, so that was having some passengers miss their connections. So we shaved off some time off of Route 2 so that it can get to Piggly Wiggly and meet up with the other buses, and we can have a smoother transfer for the passengers. The Gateway bus, we added that it will serve the Gateway area and the Eagle Ridge Apartments area, and will now go past Fran Fruzen Intermediate School to take students in that area that may be attending school there. So we hope with these modifications we've alleviated some problems and came up with some great modifications. We did have 3 meetings so far for public input. And we got some great input, and one of the inputs led to us making minor modifications to the modifications we already had. So we modified what we already had modified because of some input we got. So that's it. Okay? Any questions?
James,
over here.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you just tell the story briefly about the lady in the Piggly Wiggly route?
Sure. So with our first modifications, we had Route 6 going to Piggly Wiggly in such a way that she would not get to Piggly Wiggly the way the bus was going. She would have to continue downtown, ride all the way on the west side of town, and then back to Piggly Wiggly. So it was about a 45-minute ride. So because she was so animated, we modified it and turned Route 6 around. So now Route 6 will serve the Copeland area, which is where she lives. She'll get picked up there, taken to Piggly Wiggly, and Route 6 turns around and serves Copeland again. So if there's any passengers or residents that need to get to the west side, we're accomplishing that.
Thank you. You made that much more convenient for people.
Yeah, we tried. Thank you.
This is not a question, just, can you hear me? Am I on? I have it on, but it's not.
It's not on.
It's on, I pressed it on.
Yeah, you're good.
Is it red?
It doesn't have a light.
Oh,
It's not, but it's, I
Okay.
pushed the on button. I hope you can hear me, but I was just gonna ask that we, and you talked to this earlier about as the modifications are made, I just wanted to make sure that the residents are informed of the changes.
Yes, thank you. The new route maps will be available on the Beloit Transit website, BeloitTransit.com, and on the City of Beloit website. So they'll be posted there. We're in the process of getting some rider guides printed up, and we will have them available very shortly. Okay? All right, thank you.
At this time, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposed to these changes, please come forward at this time? Second call. Third call. The public hearing is now closed, and we do not need action on this item tonight. Oh, yes, we do. So sorry. Yes, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion by Preschel, second by Duncan. Any further discussion?
I'm just happy that this is happening. This is, again, we used to call it just twisting up, and so things are even better than they were. So I'm proud of the staff for this.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 4B, public hearing on the 2022 Community Development Block Grant Budget and 2022 Annual Action Plan.
And before we have a presentation from our Community Development Director, I will be recusing because a nonprofit I am on the board of is potentially receiving funds via Cdbg. So I will step out of the room and pass it to Vice President Keys.
Thank you. And Julie Christensen will walk us through the CDBG budget and annual action plan.
Okay, so one of the first, there's two pieces to the CDBG public hearing, and the first is the annual action plan. So we're considered a formula grantee because we get funding every year. And so we submit a consolidated plan every 5 years and an annual action plan each year. Our current consolidated plan was approved in 2019 and goes through 2024. We have an annual plan for you this year. Included in your packet as attachment A is the annual action plan. It identifies, specific objectives for housing, homelessness, public housing, and community development, includes information on the CDBG process, affordable housing and special needs populations. This is basically a reiteration of the consolidated plan and what's in there. Otherwise, we'd have to do an amendment to the consolidated plan. So that follows from that. And then the budget would actually be included in the annual plan when it is submitted to HUD, once you have approved the budget. So to begin with, we are anticipating We will not know our grant, we don't know our grant award at this point, but we're anticipating $640,000 in new grant funds, $220,000 in housing rehab program income. That's money that gets paid back through the loan program. And then there's $5,000 in prior year fair housing funds that haven't been spent, which you'll see we're actually putting back into fair housing. But we have to reallocate it because if it isn't spent within a year and a half, we have to reallocate the funds. The public service cap is at $132,150, and then the planning and admin cap is at a total of $172,000, and then only 20% of it can come from the grant, which is $128,000. The rest would then come from program income. So this is the public services category. This is the most competitive category. We always get more applications than we can ever fund. And so as you'll see, we've funded it at less than the public service cap. We did that primarily because we wanted to fund NARSA activities, which you'll see on another screen. So there's a lot of public service type programs that are in our NARSA neighborhoods, and we're able to fund them outside of the cap. But in order to have money to do those programs, they're not under the public service cap. So we've funded, Beloit Meals on Wheels, Community Actions Fatherhood Initiative, ECHO, rent utility assistance. What's nice about ECHO's programs is they fund their staffing costs through fundraising. So when we give them a grant, that is all direct money to clients, which Counselor Levy always loves and likes to fund them for that reason. Family Promise, emergency shelter. Actually, I think that's supposed to be family services, so my mistake. Emergency shelter for homeless families, and then Family Promise. Actually, I take that back. Family Promise is emergency shelter for homeless families. Family Services is case management for domestic violence services. Health Nets, primary care, medical, dental, vision. Project 1649, RSVP, Boys and Girls Club, State Land Literacy, and Salvation Army supportive services. So a lot of these are programs that have received funding in the past. We're trying to award as much as possible to those entities that serve our clients and residents of Beloit. And this is the NARSA area, which I know that a lot of you are passionate about. So we're funding $50,000 for the Resources Navigator through Community Action, and then $15,000 for Community Action's Merrill Community Center, and then $15,000 for Fresh Start. Fresh Start is not something we funded in the past, but they're in need of some dollars, and that's the program where they'll work with high school students and they work on house builds. And I think that's a wonderful program for those students. And then $4,000 for each neighborhood cleanup in Merrill and Hackett, which we find is a real benefit for the neighborhoods because it allows them to bring in the tires and bring in the stuff that they might not otherwise be able to afford to dispose of. And then the community social worker at Family Services at $40,000. That's their navigator. That navigator we funded at a lower amount because they don't spend as much. Community Action really just spends their money a lot quicker, so we've given them more. And then ECHO's rent assistance and NeighborWorks direct homeownership assistance for a total of $156,000 in those two targeted neighborhoods, which I think is a good sum to help move those neighborhoods forward. And then $170,000 for our code enforcement and inspection program, which is citywide. And then here's your program and planning administration cap. We're showing $143,000 for program administration. That pays for staff costs related to administering the community development block grant program. And then the $5,000 of prior year funds that will go into fair housing activities. And then we're putting $212,000 in our housing rehab loan program, which is a program that is available to low and moderate income residents or property owners that house low and moderate income residents to help them upgrade their units. And then some additional citywide direct home ownership assistance through NeighborWorks, which from like the last 20 years, what we found is that sometimes helping somebody come up with that down payment and the closing costs is key to them being able to buy a house. So I think that's a really important program. And then $50,000 for WIBIC's economic development program. And then for a total of $865,000 in terms of the proposed CDBG budget. And I'll leave it on that screen. And so tonight is the night for your public hearing. It'll be on your agenda for action at your next meeting. Included in your packet, besides the plan, was the budget, which is on one sheet, which is attachment B. And then attachment C is a summary of all the applications. And then there's an attachment D, which was requested by Councilor Levy and Forbeck at the CDA meeting. This shows you kind of the history of the 2021 request and award, 2022 request, and what CDA is recommending. They thought it was important that the council see that history. And then attachment E are the NARSA objectives, because in terms of the local funding priority, it points back to the NARSA objectives. So it's important that you know what those are. So this is just on your agenda for public hearing. This is the night for you to listen to any resident comments on the CDBG budget and plan.
Great.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. All right, now is the time for the public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant Budget and 2022 Annual Action Plan. At this time, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone interested in speaking for or against, please come forward.
Good evening. First, I want to thank you, Lori, because I was at home watching your meeting the last time you met, and people did not come to the microphone, and it was very, very difficult when you're watching this on the public access channel to hear what's being said. So thank you again tonight for adjusting the microphone. I wanted to speak about homelessness, because I think that's a huge problem here in our city.
Excuse me, Ms. Harrell. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure. I'll state my name.
Sure.
Dorothy Harrell.
Thank you.
Okay. Homelessness is a big problem here in Beloit. And in 2019, I sat on a committee for the city of Beloit and Rock County, draft analysis of the impediments to fair housing. Huge report, but I've looked at it many, many times since we did the report. And I hope that you all will look at it and find ways to address what were already identified as impediments, not just to housing, but to fair housing. That's the name of the committee, Impediments to Fair Housing. And there are many things that are mentioned in there that I would hope that we start to address when we talk about homelessness. I'm sitting on a committee with the Diversity Action Team right now to do a program on homelessness, and a gentleman who's with the state of Wisconsin said that we have to be very mindful of the fact that some terms are interchangeable. People will use the term shelter, or they'll use homelessness, or they might use the fact that people are without lodging, and all these things are meaning that people are homeless. There have been so many articles that I have looked at recently in the Beloit Daily News about homelessness. March 15th, headline, Homeless Share Struggle for Permanent Shelter. May, food cards are sought for homeless shelter. August 24th, second graders raise funds for homelessness. September 30th, the number of our homeless students is rising. And this does not even address the fact that, yes, we have Family Promise, which addresses family needs, but we don't have anything for young adults or older adults who are single individuals that may find themselves homeless. I had a young woman who just got a job at Amazon and was sleeping in her car and called me several times, and we called everything we could think of in this area to find some place where she could stay until she could get on her feet. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. I also want to comment on the fact that the agenda and the public hearing for this meeting, to me, were not very well announced. I read it tonight in the paper. October 18th, page 3, says the City Council will be seeking input. If it was in the paper earlier, and I know there was a small article on September 28th that said that the City Council and staff were looking at money and trying to find programs that have a lasting impact citywide. The only one other thing I want to mention is the fact that I would hope that in addition to looking at pipes or whatever as infrastructure, that we would consider our youth as part of our infrastructure. because we need to put some investment in youth and youth programs. Beloit Daily News of October 10th. Rockford is to target their juvenile crime with a lot of their funding. I mean, if you, and I know you are reading the paper and aware of what's going on. The last person arrested for murder in this city was 15 years old. We need to start to address the problem with our youth and think about programming and support for youth in this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Harrell. Would anyone else like to come up and speak at this time? For the 2020 community? Yes. The second call, final call, and the public hearing is now closed.
The next item is item 4C, public hearing on the proposed 2022 Home Investment Partnership Program.
Somebody getting her?
Want to go find Clint? We'll get Mr. President back in here.
Thank you. Community Development Director Julie Christensen will be here to present.
So this is the evening for your public hearing on the 2022 home program budget. So for 2022, we're estimating that the city will receive around $190,000 in new home grant funds. We received, I think, 194 this year, and they're assuming level funding at this point, and then 19,000 in home administrative dollars. In addition, we anticipate using 195,431 in program income and 766,530 in prior year funds in 2022. We had anticipated that we would get more done in 2021, but we're having a difficult time getting people to bid on projects. So that's been slowing us down. Luckily, we did see some other projects advance, like Community Actions, a Fresh Start House, which we funded part of on Dewey, and the Wisconsin Housing Partnership have been working on houses on Euclid and Highland and making good progress. So what the CDA recommended was up to $100,000 in total funds available for owner-occupied rehab loans. Please keep in mind that we also have Cdbg funds allocated to that. The home funds are a lot more particular, and so there's not a lot of people who always qualify for the home funds, so we did a smaller amount this year. $75,000 to NeighborWorks Black Hawk Region for down payment assistance for home projects. So that's available to Community Actions projects as well as the Wisconsin Housing Partnership, and then if we do home projects. And then $25,000 for administrative expenses, and up to $940,000 to be used for acquisition rehab and new construction projects in our NARSA areas, which are our Merrill and Hackett neighborhoods, and a map of that was in your packet tonight. So this shows you in table format that same information. It's $190,000 in new funds, $195,431 in program income, and then the prior year funds for a total of $1,151,961. And then you can see the amount of admin funds we have available. And then we're showing $780,000 for new construction or acquisition rehab, $100,000 in homeowner rehab, $75,000 in down payment assistance. The $160,000 was part of the new construction piece that we were showing. The CHOTO funds were allocated to be split between Beloit and Janesville, and the applications we received through that process included 2 new construction projects for Wisconsin Housing Partnership. And since they're doing such a great job, and they have been able to get some contractors going, we thought, why not take advantage of that and provide some of our funding to them along with our CHOTO funds. And then that gives the total home of $1,176,961. And I'll go back to that. And this is just on your agenda for public hearing tonight, and you will take action on this budget as well on November 1st.
This time, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposed, please come forward at this time? Second call. Third call. The public hearing is now closed, and we don't need action on this item. I'm good. Okay.
Item 4D is public hearing on the 2022 operating library and capital improvements proposed budget.
And Eric Miller will step up and present.
Good evening. So tonight is the public hearing for the 2022 operating capital and library budgets. The budget summary for 2022 shows a total budget of $149 million, which is an increase of about $50 million from the 2021 budget. The general fund budget is showing roughly $35 million, which is an increase of just over $1 million, or about 3% over the 2021 budget. And the enterprise funds are collectively showing an increase of about $850,000 up to just about $21 million for all enterprise funds. So here is just a high-level slide showing the budgets by fund type. And you can see that the primary drivers here of the increase is related to the capital improvement budget and the special revenue funds. The capital improvement budget increase is primarily made up of the wastewater treatment plant upgrades project, which is just over $40 million on its own. And the special revenue funds are showing $6.2 million increase, which special revenue funds house our TIF districts. And so the increase in the TID increment is the primary reason for special revenue fund increases. A couple of decreases show the debt service fund budget as well as the internal service funds. Some of the changes that were made actually in 2021 that had an impact on 2022's budget as it relates to personnel were 2 seasonal or casual employees that were added to City Hall front desk, and the administrative assistant part-time out at CIP, or out at DPW, which is part of the CIP engineering division. There is a proposed senior project engineer position for 2022 that is allocated among many different DPW funds. And then we have some minor changes to many allocations for many personnel staffing positions. And we do that on an annual basis. So those different funds include the general fund, enterprise fund, and even some of the Cdbg funds that you just saw. So some non-personnel related highlights include the increase in net new construction up to 8.67%. That's an increase over last year's of 1.95, so a really good increase there, showed some good growth in the city. Shared revenue and expenditure restraint remains flat. It has remained flat for well over a decade. Do not anticipate that changing anytime soon. We tend to celebrate when there is no decrease, and so we celebrate when it's flat. As far as highway aids go, we did see a small decrease. We were hopeful to see a slight increase there based on the governor's proposed budget, but we did see an actual decrease there. Personal property aid for next year is going to be just under $200,000. That is related to a statutory change in the interpretation of a rule that was implemented a few years back. We were the beneficiary of that new interpretation. That number is normally right around $105,000, so this is a nice increase for 2022. Assessed values and equalized values both had good increases of about 8% and just over 22% respectively. We saw the general fund levy increase by just over $1 million. The general tax levy increased by just over $1 million. $100,000 of that was related to debt service. It's important to note that we are still restricted by levy limits in the state of Wisconsin. So some fee changes that are proposed for 2022. includes some various park and rec programs. We had very minimal park and rec adjustments this year. That tends to be some of the more changes that we see on an annual basis. We do look at our fees each year to try to make sure that we're trying to cover as much of the cost as we can to provide those programs. The Planning and Building Services Division saw a number of changes to their permits, primarily HVAC, plumbing, electrical type permits. We saw an engineering fee proposed for $50 for a right-of-way permit fee as a base fee, and then a 50-cent per foot for underground utility installation on top of that. We're seeing or projecting a 4.5% increase in our wastewater fund, and that is going primarily to fund the capital improvement that I spoke about for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. We have to continue to maintain those plants so that we can provide good service. There is a 25-cent increase proposed for the stormwater fee from $3.50 up to $3.75. This is the first increase in the fee that we've proposed since 2015. We are also in the process of a comprehensive water rate study. That will most likely not take effect in 2022 based on the timing of the application and getting through the Public Service Commission. If there is a change in that timing, we of course would come back to you before implementing any of that. It's not anticipated to take place in 2022 at this point. So here is a slide showing our municipal tax levy, our proposed levy. Shows the just over $1 million that I spoke of, which is about 6.16%. You can see the increase in assessed values of 7.95%, which of course then translates into the overall local tax rate of $12.354 per thousand of assessed value, which is just under or just over 78 cents per thousand of assessed value proposed for 2022. And what we're seeing here primarily is shifting the levy out of the general fund back into the transit fund, which we had done the opposite of that in 2021 in order to take advantage of CARES Act dollars that the transit authority was allowed to use. So this is just right-sizing it back to the normal levy that is generally applied to the transit fund. And here is a bar graph showing where the tax rate has been over the last 5 years. You can see the increase there in 21-22, taking advantage of the net new construction number. And still, overall, over the last 4 years, when you average that out, it's just over 22 to 23 cents per year. So still relatively modest increases when you look at it on an average basis. And here's a graph showing the two different equalized and assessed value numbers. Tremendous increase in the equalized values over the last 2 to 3 years. That's why we are in the process of a current revaluation that is going on as we speak. And the idea of that is to bring those two numbers closer together. And so on the 2022 tax roll, which would be the 2023 budget, we would anticipate that those two numbers be closer together. So again, tonight is the public hearing for the budget for 2022. Your next steps would be to come back on November 1st for your consideration for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor or oppose the budget, please come forward at this time. Second call. Third call. The public hearing is now closed. Next item on the agenda, please.
The next item is item 4E, consideration of resolution 2021-140, authorizing a conditional use permit to allow a drive-through use in a C3 community Commercial District for the property located at 1555 Willowbrook Road.
Community Development Director Julie Christensen.
First Community Credit Union has applied for this conditional use to allow a drive-through use for the property at 1555 Willowbrook Road. The applicant intends to operate a drive-through teller/ATM windows at their new branch location at 1555 Willowbrook Road. They will utilize existing driveways and building canopy, and the applicants have proposed widening the northern exit-only driveway to 2 lanes. This property was recently rezoned from general manufacturing to community commercial. Drive-through lanes require a conditional use permit in all commercial districts. They are currently in the process of remodeling the existing building into a new branch location. We're excited to see a vacant building be occupied. Plan Commission reviewed this item on September 22nd and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the conditional use, subject to the ordinance for 2 ordinance requirements listed on the resolution, and subject to the compliance with the findings of fact, and then according to the conditional use permit decision form, which is included in your packet. Also in your packet is a site plan which shows the driveway access and where the drive-through and how it will operate. The resolution 2021-140 includes 2 ordinance requirements, which are that the applicant's contractor shall obtain a permit to work in the public right-of-way to allow the widening of an existing driveway apron. And the second is that Section 2-506 of the zoning ordinance gives the applicant 25 months from the date of conditional use permit issuance to commence use of the drive-through, or the conditional use shall lapse and be of no further effect. And Plan Commission did recommend approval.
At this time, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone wishing to speak in favor or oppose this item, please come forward at this time. Second call. Third call. Public hearing is now closed. Can I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Motion by Blakely, second by Forbeck. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
I
opposed?
just wondered if I should recuse myself. Well, I guess I don't have to. My wife doesn't work there anymore. Never mind.
If I heard correctly, it passed unanimously.
Item 5 is public comment.
We've reached the point on the agenda where members of the public may speak to the council about items that may come before us in the future. Council may not act on any requests, but may refer you to a staff member if needed. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less and refrain from any personal attacks on council or staff. Mr. Clerk, I believe we had a written comment submitted.
I have 1 written comment and 1 in-person comment. I'll read the emailed comment first. Dear Mr. Miller, with once-in-a-lifetime amount of relief money coming from the federal government, I suggest the money be used for something that will last a lifetime. I suggest that the city purchase as much land as possible, not for commercial development, but for parks and green spaces, for gatherings, and just walking and enjoying nature. I further hope that as much land along the creek and river be purchased, expanding Leeson's Park south of the creek, for instance, and expanding the Greenway as well, perhaps with Roosevelt Park as well. Go big. That was from Roger Dutcher, 1537 Washburn, Beloit, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
I have a public comment sign-in sheet here for Patricia Zodi.
I just have a question also here.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment about the ordinance number 3729 that you'll be addressing later. And can I make my comment now, or do I need to wait till you bring that up?
You can now.
Okay. My name is Patricia Zodi, and I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Beloit. We have been able to review ordinance number 3729, the 2021 proposed wards and polling places. At this time, we do not have any comments or suggestions on the proposed wards and polls. But it would have been nice to have a 2011 ward population and racial composition chart to compare with the 2021 proposal one. so that we could have compared those with what was going on in 2020, 2010. It wasn't there.
Just the 2021 was in the packet.
Right.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It would have been nice to have, the 2011 one of this to compare. I don't know if you have a list like that, but, we do appreciate the work that Eric Miller and his team put into this process and hope that things continue to go well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to the council tonight? Second call. Third call. Public comment is now closed.
Item 6 is consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda.
Would any council member like anything removed from the consent agenda? If not, the consent agenda consists of items 6A through 6H. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Motion by Forbeck, second by Duncan. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7 is licenses. Item 7A, consideration of resolution 2021-148 for a new Class A beer license for GS Gas Mart located at 1888 Chopier Road. Harjinder Samara, agent. So GS Gas Mart, Inc. is requesting the approval of a Class A beer license for the period ending June 30, 2022, through the purchase of the existing licensed premise known as Beloit Sitco. The application was accompanied by a letter from the current owner of Beloit Sitco stating that they are willing to relinquish their license on the condition of the application being approved. A complete application with publication fee was submitted to the Clerk Treasurer's office and was referred to the ABLCC for their October 12, 2021 agenda by the City Council on September 20th, 2021 on the consent agenda. The ABLCC reviewed the application at their October 12, 2021 regular meeting to assure conformity with existing rules, regulations, and zoning ordinances of the city and the state, and made a recommendation of 4-0 to council for approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Motion by Forbeck. Is there a second? Second by Preschel. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 8, ordinances. Item 8A, consideration of ordinance number 3723, amending the zoning district map from C1 Office District to PLI Public Lands and Institutions District for the property located at 657 Bluff Street.
And since it's a second reading, we'll forego the review. So is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Motion by Forbeck, second by Duncan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 8B, consideration of ordinance number 3724, amending the zoning district map from C1 Office District to PLI Public Lands and Institutions District for a portion of 1650 Lee Lane to become part of 2600 Milwaukee Road.
And same as before, we'll forego the presentation. So is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Motion by Forbeck. Is there a second? Second by Keys. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 8C, consideration of ordinance 3725, amending the zoning district map from R1B, single-family residential district, to R2, two-family residential district, for the property located at 529 8th Street.
It's a second reading, so we'll forego the presentation. So do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Blakely, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Preschel. Any discussion?
I would like to.
Yeah, Counselor Preschel.
Yeah, this was a recommendation for denial from the Plan Commission, and it's something we don't see a lot of anymore because this has been going on for about 20 years, I think since before Julie came, that they, made the non-conforming use thing. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, and this is clearly a case where we should deny it and go along with the Plan Commission's recommendation.
Any further discussion?
I wanted, sorry.
Yeah,
I believe during the prior presentation, there were public comments and comments from neighbors as well that showed concerns. So the urging council for denial.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Yes.
Motion fails.
The next item is item 8D, consideration of ordinance 3697 to amend section 11.23 sub 3 and 11.23 sub 6 sub A of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to driveway permits and driveway widths. This is a first reading.
Scott Prindiville is here to present tonight.
Yes, the current City of Beloit code limits residential driveway widths to 20 feet wide at the property line. This has become problematic for a number of people who have been applying for driveway permits because in today's age of bigger houses, bigger lots, 3-car garages, 20 feet just isn't adequate anymore. We've had a number of houses that have been looking for driveway permits that have existing driveways that exceed this maximum. And we also have a number of new developments in town that are building homes with 3-car garages that have been desiring wider driveways. Our current code only allows 20 feet for residential and doesn't allow the city engineer or anybody else to grant an exception for a wider driveway. So this change would bump up the maximum width of driveways to 24 feet for houses with 2-car garages or less, and 30 feet for 3-car garages. I did a sampling of area communities, and this is in line with what other communities are doing in the area. So that's the gist of what this change is.
Excellent, thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to lay this item over. Moved by Preschel, is there a second? Second by Keys, any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 8E, consideration of ordinance 3729 to repeal and recreate sections 1.13 and 1.14 sub 1 and sub 2 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to city electoral ward boundaries and polling places. This is first reading.
Eric Miller will come on up and present this item.
Okay. So on August 16th of 2021, the 2020 U.S. Census data was released, which began the 60-day time frame in which Rock County would need to act to develop new supervisory boundaries. On October 7th, 2021, the Rock County Board adopted a tentative supervisory district map. City staff has taken the information and established a proposed city ward map. After the ward map is adopted, the county will have another 60 days to solidify the supervisory district map before the state redistricts the assembly and senate district lines. The phase of the redistricting process may impact the city's ward map, and adjustments to the ward map may be needed in the future. So in order to do the redistricting, municipalities are required to adjust the ward boundaries to follow the new census data. They cannot, wards cannot cross over supervisory district lines. And since those lines were redrawn for portions of the city of Beloit, That's what prompted the need to redistrict the properties in the city. There's certain requirements in order to do that you have to follow. Some of those being be comprised of whole census blocks. You can't split census blocks between different voting wards. They have to suit the convenience of the voters, be comprised of contiguous territory, take into account the county supervisory district plan, consider population and racial and ethnic characteristics, comply with population ranges that are in between 600 and 2100 population, and lie entirely within one municipality or county. You can't have wards that fall outside of your city district. So the prior wards consisted of 25 wards. The new proposed plan consists of 23 wards that were using the criteria that I just mentioned. Some of the wards have similar boundaries as the prior map did, but the vast majority of them did change, and again, that was due primarily to the supervisory district changes. The proposed maps were attached into your packet showing what the prior map looked like and what the current proposed map was. Both of those maps show the new supervisory district boundaries, which is why you can see where some of those wards crossed over those new boundaries. And so that again was what's prompting the change there. Staff is not proposing any change to the physical polling places at this point. However, the wards assigned to each of the specific polling places, there were some changes there. Due to the fact that we went from 25 to 23 wards, anything beyond ward number 8, which was the one that we had to combine with another ward, basically had a ward change. So the majority of the numbers had changed, even though you may be, many of the people will still be voting in the same locations. And so the prior wards, or I should say the current wards, are 1, 2, and 3 at Converse School, 4, 5, and 6 at Gaston, 7, 8, 9 at Hackett, 10, 11, and 12 at the Historical Society, 13, 14, 15, and 22 at the library, 16 is at First Congregational Church, 17 and 18 are at Todd Elementary School, 19, 20, and 21 are at River of Life Church, and 23, 24, and 25 are at Central Christian Church. So the new proposed wards in those polling places are 1, 2, and 3 at Converse, 4, 5, and 6 at Gaston, 7 and 8 at Hackett, 9, 10, and 11 at the Historical Society, 12 at First Congregational Church, 13 and 14 at Todd Elementary School, 15, 16, and 17 at the Public Library, 18, 19, and 20 at River of Life Church, 21, 22, and 23 at Central Christian Church. And so when you look at the population changes within the separate polling places, you'll see that many of them stayed roughly about the same. There was not generally big swings. However, there was a couple that did show a decline of population, and then the other one did show an increase in population. Population doesn't necessarily mean registered voters. And so, we kind of try to look at that information collectively to put the pieces together. We also want to try and look at natural boundaries that are located within the city, as well as some major streets, so that we try to block off the wards a little bit more, so that generally neighborhoods are tending to vote in the same ward or in the same polling place. So the Clerk Treasurer's Office, in conjunction with the Government Accountability Board, will ensure that all voters know their new wards and polling places and know where to find that information prior to the first election in 2022. They will all be notified of that information. We have to do that. They will be notified by a postcard mailing that goes out with your ward on there. We'll also be using publications in the local newspaper, postings on city social media pages, as well as the city website. So we'll definitely be getting that information out there, and people can obviously always call the Clerk Treasurer's Office if they ever have any questions regarding their polling place or location. So we definitely want to be available for people to know where to find that information, as we know how important that is.
Thank you. This time, I'll entertain a motion to lay this item over. Motion by Keys, second by Forbeck. Any discussion?
Good job, though.
Yeah, really,
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that it's another example of taking requirements from other governmental bodies and bringing them to the city of Beloit and keeping things as straightforward for our citizens as possible. Thanks.
yeah, you did a nice job. There's nothing like a voting ward map to point out the crazy boundaries the city has. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
I would like to just share some appreciation and being able to keep all the polling places open as well. So thank you.
Any more discussion?
I would just like to remind people to take a look at this so there's no surprises. And the map will be out there, and it is tentative based on what's going on at the county level. So it can, we may end up in, like, most likely will, there'll be some minor tweaks to it maybe. But we got some time for that.
There's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 9, appointments. The individuals to be named have been nominated for a seat on the city board, committee, or commission. Each nomination is subject to confirmation by the city council. Approval of appointments will be accomplished by one motion unless a council member requests to take up a nomination separately, in which event the nomination will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda. At this point, we have two appointments. The first being to the Municipal Library Board, David Ramirez Carrera Jr., replacing Megan Miller to a term ending June 30, 2022. And one to the Park, Recreation, and Conservation Advisory Commission, Greg Schneider, replacing Spencer Anderson as the school district's representative for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Duncan. Is there a second? Second by Forbeck. Any discussion? Not. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10, councilor activities and upcoming events.
Start with Vice President Keys.
Thank you, President Anderson. For my committee and commission report, the Appointment Review Committee, I just want to continue to thank all the residents who applied and welcome those newly appointed, and just continue to share that we are a stronger city when we have strong and engaged resident participation on our committees. And we still have a few vacancies, so if you are interested, please check our city website, and the applications can be found there to apply. For Parks and Recs and Conservation Advisory Commission, the Parks and Rec Department is starting to get things ready for fall and for winter. And so you'll be seeing laying mulch in some of the playgrounds, and the splash pads are closed officially, even though the weather and the temps seem a little warm right now. For as far as the recreation, they're currently taking registration for volleyball leagues. The ice rink, depending upon weather, could be open for open skate soon. And there'll also be a number of Halloween events this next week. So please keep an eye out for the downtown scavenger hunt, the Oakwood Cemetery Historic Walk, Pumpkins in the Park at Horace White Park, and then outside of Parks and Rec, but citywide, there'll be trick-or-treating on the 31st. And so for counselor activities, On Saturday, October 9th, I was able to participate in an Indigenous Peoples Day celebration in Janesville along the Rock River. It was a beautiful event, partaking in a sacred water ceremony, storytelling, and music. And last week, I was also able to attend a Indigenous Leaders in Clean Water seminar. And finally, this weekend, I participated in Beloit Rotary's Environmental Days of Service with a litter pickup along the river, Riverside Drive and White Avenue. And we, about 10 or 12 volunteers, picked up about 18 bags of litter. So again, I appreciate everybody's effort in helping keeping Beloit clean, healthy, and beautiful. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Councilor Blake?
Thank you. Last week, I was privileged to attend the 20th anniversary celebration for the Gateway business area, along with Councilors Preschel and Duncan. Our city manager was there, and Ms. Luther received commendations for the work that she has done to keep the Gateway healthy and thriving. So it was a really happy event. It was over at G5. It was a great evening. There were people, elected officials from city level, county, state, and national as well. So I was really happy to be there. Last Saturday, I went down to the farmer's market and was very pleased to see how much produce and how many craft items and how much many great lotions and soaps and things of that sort were there. There are 2 more weeks of the downtown open market on Saturday mornings, and after that we'll be switching over to the winter market indoors. But the weather was great, and it's just a very nice seasonal thing to do.
Okay, I was at the budget workshop held at the Beloit Public Library on Monday, October 11, along with my council colleagues here. And I just want to say thanks to Eric Miller, our finance director, and his staff for their hard work. And also we had some of our department heads there. I had a chance to go to the Beloit Memorial High School homecoming parade on October 8th, so it was great to see the kids out and happy again. And I'll reiterate what Councilor Blakely said. I, and Councilor Preschel were at the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation Gateway Business Park 20th Anniversary Celebration, which is on October 14th. It was great to see former Senator Judy Robeson, Frank McKern, the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation Chair, our legislators, the GBEDC members, our city staff, and so many who were instrumental in this endeavor. Additionally, I was proud to be at the tree planting ceremony in honor of our former Economic Development Director, Andrew Yaki. It was a great tribute to Andrew for his 30-plus years with the city of Beloit and to celebrate his accomplishments and helping us to add over 4,500 jobs and over $1.85 billion in private capital investments. Congratulations, Andrew, if you're at home watching. And I want to applaud our city manager and city staff for their efforts and hard work in putting that special event together. So it was wonderful, the tree and everything, the whole planting ceremony. It was just one that I will remember for a lifetime, and I'm sure Andrew will too. So staff, it was a job well done. This ends my council report for this evening.
I won't add anything.
I'll just chime in with, we're talking about the Halloween festivities on Saturday, October 30th at 5 p.m. You can it'll be Flick or Treat at ABC Supply Stadium. Tickets are $5, and I believe they're showing the movie Hocus Pocus, which is a Halloween classic. So if you have nothing else to do that day, please go check it out. It's great that we're using that stadium for other things besides baseball. I've said it once, I'll keep saying it because it's just an amazing thing to do. I also wanted to, remind people of the vacancies on our committees. We're starting to get a lot of openings on those, so I'm going to take a little bit of time in reading them, hopefully not take too much time. On the Alcohol Beverage License Control Committee, we have 1 vacancy for a resident, 1 vacancy for a Tavern League rep, and 1 vacancy for a school board representative. On the Appointment Review Committee, we have 1 vacancy for a resident. Board of Appeals, we have 1 vacancy for a second alternate. Board of Review, we have 2 vacancies for an alternate. Community Development Authority, we have 1 vacancy for a resident with financial management background. Landmarks Commission, we have 2 vacancies for residents. Municipal Golf Committee, 1 vacancy for resident. And Park, Recreation, and Conservation Advisory Commission, 1 vacancy for youth. You can go on the City of Beloit website and find an application, or you can contact Pam Lathrop at the City of Beloit. Her number is 608-364-6614. And the last thing I'll say is, I know they all left, but there are several students here attending government class. So I just wanted to thank them for coming out. I know it's assigned and you have to be here, but it was still great to see younger people getting involved in government. And with that, I'll end my report.
The next item is item 11, City Manager's Presentation. Item 11A, consideration of Resolution 2021-141, approving the City of Beloit's participation in Wisconsin Green Tier Legacy Community Program.
City Manager Luther.
Thank you very much. I must say I noticed with our students who were here for government class, I know they have a 1-hour minimum requirement, and as I recall, my own child may have left mid-meeting once that 1 hour hit, so really can't fault them for that. In any case, this item comes before you with the unanimous recommendation from our, I don't want to get the title incorrect, I apologize, Parks, Recreation, Conservation Advisory Commission. This is part of the city's strategic plan that was recently adopted by the City Council. The Department of Natural Resources and a number of municipalities across the state started this program to give cities an opportunity to work in partnership with one another, to benchmark with one another, and to be leaders in sustainability efforts, and namely in water resources as one of the key areas of potential improvement. With the improvements that we are making at our wastewater treatment plant, and with our recommitment, if you will, to the sustainability efforts, this seems like an appropriate time for the council to consider our formal participation in this Green Tier Legacy program. The resolution establishes the requirements to our participation, our working in partnership with those other partner cities and with the Department of Natural Resources. Upon approval, we would send an executed copy of the resolution and begin working through a pretty rigorous assessment process. This will provide a baseline, if you will, for us to report against future progress and have some very specific activities that we can focus our attention on and prioritize in partnership with the DNR and with other agencies who have been doing this work. In looking at the assessment, we know that there are several areas that we are already excelling in, and then other areas where we do need to spend some more time and attention. So I think this will be a very helpful guide and help us move forward in these initiatives, and to give us a tool that we can report out to the public to demonstrate our progress in a meaningful way. So, I know that Councilor Keyes is on that particular commission where they discussed this issue at length. We attached a number of supporting documents, perhaps more than you may have needed, but wanted to give you a flavor of all of the information that we will have access to as a partner agency. And with that, I will stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you. At this time, just to get it on the floor, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Keyes, second by Duncan. Any discussion? If not, I'll just, Counselor Keyes is pushing the button. Okay, yes, Counselor Keyes.
Well, I first want to thank staff with respect to the responsiveness as well as our residents, because our residents have really come out in this last year and made it known that this kind of refreshed position with respect to sustainability and environmental action needed to be a priority. And so I really want to thank staff again for walking through this with council in the strategic plan meeting and to help develop the strategic framework for sustainability and these goals that have led us to become or have before us the opportunity to become a green tier community. And I also just want to share that this is an excellent start. And as we look at the follow-up action following the proclamation earlier this year, that zooming out 2020 to 2030 is to be seen as the decade of action. So I'm really excited to see where this can take us locally. And I really believe that Beloit can do its part and become a regional leader with innovation and solutions here.
Thank you. Yeah, just to echo that, that is, it's really a great step in the right direction, and thank you to staff for getting this all prepared and looking through the packet. There's definitely a lot of stuff there, so thank you for doing that. There's no other discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 12, reports from boards and city officers. Item 12A, the city council will adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, namely to discuss bargaining strategy related to collective bargaining with IAFF Local Number 583 Fire Union. The council will not reconvene into open session to take action on the matter discussed in closed session.
Thank you. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Motion by Prushel.
Second.
Second by Forbeck. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're now in closed session.
So